Okay, let's unpack this. Think about your day for a second.
Yeah.
How many decisions do you make based on what you think someone else is going to do?
Hmm. Probably quite a few when you put it like that.
Right. Or, how often does someone else's choice totally change the outcome you were aiming for?
Happens all the time.
Exactly. Life is just,
Yeah.
it's packed with these situations, these strategic interactions.
What happens to one person really depends on what the others decide to do.
We're basically playing these kinds of games constantly, whether we realize it or not.
And what's really fascinating is that there's actually a whole field dedicated to studying exactly that.
Game theory.
Precisely. And today, we're going to take a deep dive into it, pulling insights from a specific source, a book called Lethut Trachai.
Which just means game theory, right?
Simple translation, yeah. And what comes across strongly from this material is its goal to make these, well, sometimes pretty complex ideas accessible.
Even if you're new to it all.
Exactly. It tries to bridge that gap
Mm-hmm.
between the abstract theory and how it connects to us, to psychology, to everyday life.
So it's not just dry mathematics, it's about behavior.
Fundamentally, yes.
Hmm.
Behavior in strategic situations.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is what? Explore the basics.
Explore the foundational concepts, yeah, as laid out in this text, the building blocks, and then critically see how they actually apply
In the real world.
in a huge range of situations.
Yeah.
We're talking business deals, yeah, but also politics, maybe even biology,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps surprisingly, things like our personal relationships.
Which is what makes it so interesting, I think. It gives you this lens
Mm-hmm.
to look at why people or groups do what they do, even when it seems, I don't know, irrational.
Right. It helps sort of demystify those strategic choices.
And maybe helps us figure out how to navigate them better ourselves.
That's the hope. So let's start right at the beginning, like the book does. What is game theory at its core?
What's the formal definition?
Well, the text mentions it's sometimes called the theory of conflict or theory of strategic competition.
Okay.
It's essentially a branch of applied mathematics and formal science, too,
Focused on what exactly?
on analyzing interactions
Yeah.
where the outcome for any one person or player
There. Right.
is strategically interdependent, meaning, what you get depends not just on your choices, but on everybody else's choices, too.
That interdependence is the key thing.
That's the defining feature of a game theory scenario, yeah. And because so much of life works like that,
It pops up everywhere.
it really does.
Mhm.
Economics, political science, biology, computer science, psychology.
Hmm.
It's become this indispensable tool across the board.
But it didn't just appear overnight. The source talks about its history, its roots.
It does. It highlights the journey. The earliest really significant theoretical groundwork mentioned is from John von Neumann.
A Hungarian-American mathematician.
That's him. Back in 1928, apparently he proved some basic principles mathematically, kind of laid the abstract foundation.
But it really took off when he partnered with someone else.
Yes, with the economist Oscar Morgenstern. That collaboration was huge.
What did they do?
They co-authored a book in 1944, Theory of Games and Economic Behavior.
Landmark publication.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
It basically established game theory as its own field and, crucially, showed how it could be applied to economics.
How so?
By framing things like market competition or bargaining as structured games, that really opened the door to using it for, practical real-world problems.
And the field kept evolving after that. The book mentions others.
Oh, yeah. Big advances came later in the 20th century. People like John Nash,
From a beautiful mind.
the very same. And Reinhard Selten, John Harsanyi, they actually won a Nobel Prize for their work.
What did they add?
They expanded the theory to cover more complex situations like, what if players don't have all the information?
Incomplete information games.
Exactly. And games where decisions happen one after another, sequentially. Their contributions really cemented game theory as a practical tool used today for everything from international relations to ecology to business management.
Okay, so that's the what and the where it came from. Now, what are the actual pieces, the essential components of any game in this context?
The text breaks it down into three core elements. First, you need the decision makers,
The players.
the players, right? Individuals, groups, companies, countries. Whoever is making choices in the interaction.
Like the book's example. A salesperson and a customer.
Simple example, yeah. Both are players. Each has goals, each makes choices that affect the other.
Okay, first players. What's second?
Second, you have the outcomes or payoffs.
What you get out of it.
Basically, yeah.
Right.
The results, the benefits, the costs.
Hmm.
Whatever each player receives based on the combination of strategies everyone chooses.
And players want to maximize their payoff.
Generally, yes. That's the assumption of rationality, trying to get the best possible outcome for yourself, whether that's profit, happiness, survival, whatever. The book even says the search for the best strategy is the game.
Which leads nicely to the third element, strategies.
Right. A strategy isn't just one move. It's a complete plan.
A blueprint.
Kind of. It's how a player plans to act in every possible situation that might come up during the game. It covers all the bases, anticipating what others might do.
Okay, players, payoffs, strategies. The book also makes a really important distinction about the payoffs themselves, right? Different kinds of games.
Yes, this is crucial for understanding the dynamics. It separates zero-sum games from non-zero-sum games.
Zero-sum sounds like, well, zero-sum.
It is. The total payoffs for everyone add up to zero, meaning if I gain something, you must have lost the exact same amount.
Like poker, my winnings are your losses.
Perfect example. The total amount of money on the table doesn't change, it just gets redistributed. It's pure competition.
So no chance for everyone to win.
Not in a purely zero-sum game, no. But the book points out, and this is important, that many, maybe even most, real-world situations are actually non-zero-sum.
Meaning the total doesn't have to be zero.
Right. The total payoffs can be more than zero, meaning everyone could potentially gain something, the win-win scenario.
Or less than zero.
Or less than zero, yeah, where everyone ends up worse off, a lose-lose. The pie isn't fixed. It can grow or shrink based on how people play.
And the book emphasizes trying for those win-win outcomes.
It does. Contrast that with a purely competitive zero-sum mindset, suggesting that society today often seeks ways for mutual benefit. The source uses an example about borrowing and lending.
To illustrate constraints.
Yeah, showing how spending borrowed money just shifts when consumption happens. It doesn't create more money overall in that specific transaction. But the bigger point is many interactions allow for creating value together or destroying it.
So zero-sum is pure competition. Non-zero-sum allows for cooperation or mutual harm. Are there other types mentioned?
Briefly, it mentions cooperative versus non-cooperative.
Can players make binding agreements?
Exactly. And games with complete versus incomplete information.
Do we all know the rules and payoffs?
Right. And static versus dynamic games decisions made all at once or one after another. Knowing these variations helps analyze specific situations better, like those incomplete information games. Super relevant for negotiations or psychological tactics.
Okay, so once we know the players, strategies, payoffs, game theory tries to predict outcomes using equilibrium concepts.
That's a major goal. And a key concept here is the Nash Equilibrium.
Named after John Nash.
That's the one. It's a state in the game where no single player can do better by just changing their own strategy, assuming everyone else sticks to theirs.
It's stable then, because nobody has an incentive to switch on their own.
Exactly. It's a point of stability.
But
And this is a big but.
it's not necessarily the best outcome for the group.
Precisely. That's where another concept, Pareto efficiency, comes in. The book mentions Vilfredo Pareto.
The economist who studied wealth distribution.
Right. A situation is Pareto efficient if you can't make anyone better off without making at least one other person worse off.
So if it's not Pareto efficient,
It means there's still room to improve things where someone could gain and nobody would lose out. A potential win-win is still on the table.
okay. So Nash Equilibrium is about individual stability. I can't improve my situation alone. Pareto efficiency is about collective optimality. Have we squeezed out all possible mutual gains?
And they don't always line up. That's the source of many classic dilemmas.
Like the water fetching example in the book, where saving time isn't Pareto efficient because someone gets cold water last.
Exactly. One criterion, time improved, but someone else was made worse off, not Pareto efficient. And there's one final crucial piece the book highlights.
Information.
Information. Knowing the enemy and knowing yourself. That whole idea.
You need not fear the result of 100 battles.
It perfectly captures it. Your ability to choose a good strategy depends hugely on what you know.
About the other players, their options, their payoffs.
All of it. And in games where information is incomplete or one side knows more than the other, asymmetric
The
information.
game changes completely.
Totally. Gathering information, hiding it, even spreading misinformation, that becomes part of the strategy itself.
Okay, so that's the basic language. Players, payoffs, strategies, zero-sum versus non-zero-sum, Nash versus Pareto, the role of information. But, defining terms is one thing.
How does it play out in reality?
Yeah. Let's get to the really interesting part. The classic example.
Ah, yes. The one everyone learns first, probably because it cuts right to the heart of the matter.
It has to be the prisoner's dilemma.
The prisoner's dilemma it is,
Oh,
and it's famous for a reason. Imagine two suspects arrested for a crime they committed together.
okay.
The police separate them, can't communicate, and they offer each one the same deal.
What are their choices?
Basically two options each. Confess, implicating the other person. Or stay silent, which is like cooperating with your partner in crime.
And their sentence depends on what both decide.
Exactly. The payoffs here are years in prison, which obviously they want to minimize. Let's lay out the possibilities.
Okay. Scenario 1.
Both stay silent. They cooperate with each other. Police don't have enough evidence for the main crime. They both get a light sentence, maybe 1 year each.
That sounds like the best outcome for them as a pair.
It is the best collective outcome.
Wow.
Pareto optimal. Minimal total jail time.
Okay. Scenario 2.
One confesses, the other stays silent. Let's say prisoner A confesses, prisoner B stays silent. A gets a sweet deal, goes free, 0 years. B gets the maximum sentence, say 10 years.
Ouch. Best for the confessor, worst for the silent one.
Right. And scenario 3 is just the reverse. B confesses, A stays silent, B goes free, A gets 10 years.
And the last one? Scenario 4.
Both confess. They both betray each other. In this case, they both get a moderate sentence, maybe 5 years each. Worse than staying silent, but better than being the only one who stayed silent.
Okay, so each prisoner is alone, trying to figure out what's best for them.
Exactly. And here's where the logic kicks in. Think like prisoner A.
Okay, I'm prisoner A. What am I thinking?
You think, okay, what might prisoner B do? Option 1. Suppose B stays silent.
Okay, if B stays silent...
If I also stay silent, I get 1 year. If I confess, I get 0 years. 0 is better than 1. So confessing is better for me if B stays silent.
Makes sense from my selfish perspective.
Now, option 2. Suppose B confesses.
Okay, if B betrays me.
If I stay silent, I get the maximum 10 years. If I also confess, I get 5 years. Well, 5 is way better than 10, so confessing is still better for me if B confesses.
Wow. So no matter what I think B is going to do,
Staying silent or confessing?
my best move is always to confess.
Exactly. Confessing is the dominant strategy for prisoner A. It yields a better outcome for A regardless of B's choice.
And prisoner B is going through the exact same logic.
Presumably, yes.
Yeah.
Assuming they're both rational and self-interested. So B also concludes that confessing is their dominant strategy.
So the prediction is they both confess,
That's the prediction based on individual rationality. Both confess.
landing them both with 5 years.
Which is the Nash equilibrium of this game. Remember, once they're both confessing, neither one can improve their own situation by unilaterally switching back to staying silent. If A switched while B kept confessing, A's sentence would jump from 5 to 10 years. No incentive to switch alone.
And that is the paradox, isn't it? The dilemma.
That's the core of the prisoner's dilemma. Individual rationality leads both players to make a choice.
Yes.
That results in a worse outcome for both of them, 5 years each, compared to if they had somehow managed to cooperate and both stay silent, 1 year each.
The cooperative outcome is better overall, but it's unstable.
Because each player has that individual incentive to defect, to betray, hoping the other one stays silent so they can get off scot-free. What's best for me isn't best for us.
It's a trap. So how do we ever get cooperation if rationality pushes us towards mutual defection? How do we escape this dilemma?
Well, that leads us to the work of Robert Axelrod, who the source mentions. He explored how cooperation can emerge, especially in situations where the game is played repeatedly.
Repeated games, like the prisoners face the same choice again tomorrow.
Sort of, yeah. When the same players interact over and over, the dynamic changes completely. The future matters.
How does that help?
Because your actions today have consequences for tomorrow. If I betray you today, you might betray me back next time. This allows for more complex strategies to develop.
Like what? What kind of strategies work?
Axelrod found through computer tournaments that a simple strategy called tit for tat was incredibly successful. The source outlines the key principles behind such strategies.
Okay, what are they?
First, kindness and stereothating. Start by cooperating. Be nice first.
Okay, give trust initially.
Second, retaliation. Bow through. If the other player defects, you immediately defect back in the next round. Don't be a sucker.
Punish betrayal. Makes sense.
Third, forgiveness. Kwandong. This is crucial. If the other player goes back to cooperating after defecting, you must also go back to cooperating. Don't hold a grudge forever.
So forgive and return to cooperation if they do.
And fourth, clarity. Your strategy should be simple and clear so the other player can understand how you'll react. No hidden tricks.
So it's like, Be nice, retaliate immediately if betrayed, but be ready to forgive instantly if they cooperate again, and make it obvious that's your plan.
That's pretty much it. And the source really highlights forgiveness as critical for escaping that endless cycle of retaliation. In repeated games, this approach rewards cooperation and punishes defection, but always leaves the door open for returning to mutual benefit. Players learn that short-term gains from betrayal can lead to long-term losses.
That makes a lot of sense for ongoing interactions. The book must have some real-world examples of this dilemma playing out.
Oh, definitely. A really striking one is from World War II.
Even in war.
Even in war. Pages 57 to 58 describe these unofficial truces, like one around Christmas near a small wooden house between German and American soldiers.
How is that a prisoner's dilemma?
Think about the soldiers in the trenches directly opposite each other. Their choices are attack, defect, hoping for surprise, or hold fire, cooperate, hoping the other side does too. Attacking might offer an individual gain, but risks immediate deadly retaliation. Holding fire offers potential mutual gain, staying alive, temporary peace.
So in those specific moments, they chose cooperation.
In some localized instances, yes. They implicitly chose cooperation over defection, achieving a temporary outcome far better for both sides than mutual destruction. It was like a local, repeated game emerging within the larger zero-sum war where tit for tat could briefly take hold.
Incredible. What about less dramatic examples? Students, maybe.
Yeah, the book looks at student scenarios. One example involves two students lying about a flat tire to miss an exam.
Okay.
The professor questions them separately. Their game is to stick to the lie, cooperate with each other in the deception, or deviate, tell the truth, or just mess up the story, because they couldn't perfectly coordinate their lie when questioned apart.
Their stories didn't match.
Exactly. Their attempt at cooperative defection failed because of imperfect coordination. The professor, acting strategically, essentially put them in separate interrogation rooms, exploiting their inability to guarantee the other would stick to the exact same fabricated details. Their individual rationality, stick to my version of the lie, led to collective failure, getting caught.
Ah, the coordination problem within the defection strategy.
Right, and the Khrushchev example, that feels incredibly high stakes.
Denouncing Stalin in '56.
Huge personal risk.
Yeah.
The game under Stalin was brutal. Option 1, speak truth, cooperate with conscience, payoffs potentially death. Option 2, stay silent or endorse, defect from conscience, payoff survival, maybe advancement.
So silence was the dominant strategy for survival.
For most, yes. When someone challenged Khrushchev about his silence during Stalin's era, his response basically, who asked that, they're gone now, just highlights the extreme negative payoff for defecting from the party line by speaking out. It shows how the payoff structure can enforce conformity.
Chilling. Okay, shifting gears. Business. Price wars. That sounds like a classic race to the bottom.
It often is. The book uses the example of two shoe stores in Philadelphia.
What's their dilemma?
Choice. Keep prices stable, cooperate with market norms, or cut prices, defect, steal customers. Cutting prices seems rational individually. I'll get more business.
But if both do it...
Exactly. If both cut prices aggressively, they both end up with tiny profit margins, maybe even losses. They get trapped in this suboptimal Nash equilibrium of low prices, hurting each other, even though they'd both be better off if they'd kept prices higher.
Like the prisoners both confessing.
Precisely. Customers might benefit briefly, but the businesses suffer. The source notes they often only escape when they realize the mutual harm and implicitly, or sometimes explicitly, coordinate to raise prices again or return to cooperation.
So recognizing the damaging nature of the game can lead back to cooperation.
Sometimes. But not all strategic success is about cooperation within the existing game. Sometimes it's about changing the game itself. The Rockefeller oil story illustrates this.
Rockefeller versus Clark.
Yeah. Early oil industry. Lots of players, like Clark, were focused just on drilling, finding oil, competing fiercely in that one part.
Okay. What did Rockefeller do differently?
He saw the bigger picture. The whole value chain, not just drilling, but refining, transportation, pipelines, distribution.
He wasn't just playing the drilling game.
No, he was playing the industry game. While others fought over wells, he strategically gained control over refining and transport the bottlenecks.
Ah, so he could squeeze the drillers who didn't cooperate with him.
Essentially, yes. By controlling those crucial downstream parts, he made it very hard for competitors who only drilled to succeed. He didn't just play the existing game better, he restructured the game to give himself a massive advantage. It was about strategic foresight, seeing the whole system, not just the immediate competition.
That's a powerful point. Winning isn't always about the move. It's sometimes about redesigning the board.
Or realizing you're playing on a much bigger board than you initially thought.
Okay, so these big examples are clear. But the book argues game theory applies even in, well, subtler everyday ways, especially with psychology.
Absolutely. This is where it blends with psychology and behavioral economics. The text talks about daily interactions as psychological games, or battles of wits.
Where understanding the other person's mindset is key.
Crucial. Success isn't just logic. It's about reading and influencing perceptions, motivations, emotions, even biases.
Like in sales.
For sure. The book gives an example where sometimes simple, genuine responses like just saying thank you sincerely work better than complex sales tactics.
Why?
Because it creates a positive psychological payoff for the customer. Builds trust. Makes them feel appreciated, not manipulated. That feeling influences their decision, their move in the sales game.
And managing people, that must be full of psychological games.
Oh, definitely. The text contrasts management styles. Harsh criticism might seem like a direct way to correct behavior, but...
It creates negative feelings, resentment.
Right. Negative psychological payoffs, which can lead employees to defect, reduce effort, resist, quit. Praise and encouragement, on the other hand.
Offer positive payoffs. Motivation.
Exactly. They tap into feelings of competence, potential. It fosters cooperation. It's a strategic choice by the manager, using psychological understanding to shape the game towards better productivity.
You're influencing their strategy by adjusting their perceived payoffs.
Precisely. And workplace dynamics themselves can become games. Think about performance reviews, especially if they're based on ranking.
The book mentions this creating a prisoner's dilemma between colleagues.
It can, yeah. If my bonus depends on ranking higher than you, my rational individual strategy might be to make you look bad or not help you, even if it hurts the team overall.
Like the example of employees choosing to work fewer days if the ranking is relative.
Right. If I think you'll only work 20 days, maybe I'll only work 22, so I don't get ranked lower by working 25 and losing relatively. It leads to less work overall, a suboptimal outcome for the company, driven by the structure of the evaluation game.
Game theory really highlights those underlying incentives.
It does. And the book goes further into psychological tactics, even manipulation. Tao Tun Tam Li.
Like pretending to be weak. The cow story.
Classic example. Cao Cao was powerful, but acted weak and fearful towards Liu Bei.
Why?
To make Liu Bei complacent, to lower Liu Bei's guard. By manipulating Liu Bei's perception of the situation, Cao Cao influenced Liu Bei's strategy. Liu Bei relaxed, let his guard down, and Cao Cao benefited. It wasn't direct force, it was psychological deception, like the catfish acting passive to lure prey.
So, controlling the information the other player has about you is a strategy.
A powerful one. Another tactic, exploiting known rules or psychology. The story about the Jewish diamond merchant on the Sabbath.
Right, the poor man with the brick.
He knows the owner won't discuss business on the Sabbath. It's a strict rule. So he asks the price of a brick, calling it a gold brick.
Forcing the owner into a dilemma.
Exactly. Option 1. Stick to the rule. Ignore the question. Risk losing face or seeming rude.
Yeah.
Option 2. Respond, clarify, it's not gold. Violate the Sabbath rule. The poor man designed the interaction, the game, specifically around the owner's known constraint. The owner responds, and in that specific psychological minigame, the poor man wins by forcing the owner to break his own rule.
Using someone's principles against them.
Yeah.
Clever, if a bit ruthless.
And maybe the ultimate example of manipulating information and expectations, Zhu Ziliang's empty fort strategy.
Facing a huge army with hardly any troops.
And what does he do? Throws the gates open, acts calm, plays music, the complete opposite of what you'd expect.
Why would that work? It sounds like suicide.
Because of who he was playing against. Sima Yi. Sima Yi knew Zhu Ziliang was brilliant and cautious. This bizarre, unexpected behavior.
Made Sima Yi suspicious.
Extremely. Sima Yi thought, this has to be a trap. Zhu Ziliang would never be this vulnerable unless he had something planned. The lack of expected defense signals, combined with the presence of unexpected calmness, overloaded Sima Yi's assessment.
So Zhu Ziliang played on Sima Yi's own intelligence and caution.
Exactly. He manipulated the information Sima Yi used to make his decision. Sima Yi retreated, fearing a non-existent ambush. Zhu Ziliang won the psychological game, not the military one.
Wow. And there are simpler psychological tricks too, like pricing.
Oh yeah, the classic $19.99 instead of $20. Tiny difference economically. Huge difference psychologically. Our brains just perceive it as much cheaper.
We're calling something rare.
Right. Taps into scarcity, exclusivity,
Yeah.
makes us desire it more, sometimes way beyond its actual value. Like tulip mania in history, pure psychological speculation driving prices sky high.
Even a smile can be strategic.
The book says so. A smile isn't always genuine happiness, it's a signal. A sly smile suggests secrets. A mocking smile provokes. An innocent smile disarms. Different nonverbal strategies.
And the opposite, no emotion.
The poker face, also a strategy,
Mm.
denies the opponent information about your internal state. Makes you harder to read, harder to play against.
It always comes back to information, doesn't it?
So much of it does. And the text wraps up this section by saying, to really influence someone, you need to understand their deep desires or fears.
What truly motivates them?
Yeah. Tap into that core motivation, especially fear. It's high. The book notes, and you gain real leverage in influencing their strategic choices.
Okay, so game theory isn't just cold logic. It helps us see how psychology, perception, emotion, manipulation, information shapes the games we play constantly.
It provides that framework, yeah.
Yeah.
Structure for understanding these complex human interactions.
And maybe the most complex human interactions of all, love and relationships.
The source goes there too. Explicitly calls love and marriage psychological games. Feels a bit cynical, maybe, calling love a game.
It can sound that way, but think about it. The whole process, from meeting someone to building a life together, it's full of choices, mutual influence, navigating desires that might conflict.
Strategic interactions are definitely part of it. And the text points out, outcomes aren't guaranteed to be win-win. Sometimes one person benefits more, sometimes both lose out. It's a non-zero-sum game, but not automatically positive sum. A relationship game without mutual benefit, the book warns, is risky.
And arguments, conflicts.
Analyze strategically, too. Effective arguments, the book suggests, stick to the current issue. Dragging up the past, bad strategy. Just adds negative payoffs, makes resolution harder.
And the Cold War, silent treatment.
That's seen as mutual defection, both sides refusing to cooperate on solving the problem. Leads to suboptimal outcomes, damages the relationship, like the prisoner's getting 5 years instead of 1.
And it actually calls marriage a prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah, the prisoner's dilemma, the prisoner for couples, bound together. Each partner faces choices constantly. Prioritize myself right now, defect. Or prioritize the relationship, cooperate.
Being stubborn versus compromising. Holding a grudge versus forgiving.
Exactly. The individually rational choice in the moment, saving face, winning the argument, might lead to a worse outcome for the couple long term.
So escaping the relationship trap needs cooperation.
That's the argument. Partners need to learn how to cooperate, compromise, focus on the shared outcome. And forgiveness. Absolutely essential, just like in Axelrod's work. Holding grudges is like endless retaliation. Forgiveness allows cooperation to restart.
The movie example is a great little illustration of this.
Simple but effective. He loves action, 10 points. She loves drama, 10 points. Watching the other's choice gives 2 points. Compromise gives maybe 4 each.
Self-interest says, insist on my movie.
Right. But what if one partner chooses the other's preferred movie? They get 2 points maybe, but their partner gets 10. Plus, maybe they feel good making their partner happy. The book calls this yielding strategy the best situation because it maximizes the total happiness in the relationship, not just individual scores.
Shifting from what's best for me to what's best for us.
That's the core idea for relational rationality, and the saying sorry game is similar.
Apologizing or accepting an apology as a strategic choice?
Yeah. Not apologizing might feel like winning short-term, saving face. But the long-term payoff could be the relationship-ending huge negative payoff. Accepting an apology, even if pride resists, has the payoff of repair, continuation. The text calls accepting the apology the best method for the relationship's health.
So relationship rationality looks at the long game.
Exactly. Because relationships are repeated games. You interact over and over.
Which allows for learning, trust,
Yeah.
developing cooperative patterns.
Right. You could build those tit-for-tat with forgiveness patterns over time. Though, the source does end that section acknowledging that even repeated games can end, like in breakups.
A reminder that cooperation takes ongoing effort.
It's a continuous dynamic, yeah, requiring conscious choices aimed at mutual benefit. Understanding these game theory dynamics, the dilemmas, the payoffs, including emotional ones, the power of cooperation and forgiveness, it really offers useful insights.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive, it really shows game theory isn't just abstract math. It's this powerful lens for looking at, well, pretty much any situation where people interact strategically.
From wars and business deals right down to office politics and choosing a movie with your partner.
Yeah, and it highlights this constant tension between what seems rational for me right now and what leads to the best outcome overall, especially when interactions are repeated or when cooperation can create more value.
Individual self-interest is powerful, absolutely.
Yeah.
But understanding the game structure, the potential for mutual gain or loss, shows that foresight, cooperation, even understanding psychology can lead to much better results.
It gives you a way to see the hidden strategies and incentives shaping everything around us.
Really does offer a unique perspective on why we do what we do.
So, for everyone listening, now that you've taken this journey through game theory with us, seeing it in history, in business, in psychological tactics, even in love, how might you look differently at the games you find yourself in every day?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah. Could identifying who the players are, what the real payoffs might be, including the emotional ones, and maybe shifting your strategy, even just a little, maybe towards more cooperation, or trying harder to see the other person's perspective, could that lead to surprisingly different, maybe better results for you?
Something definitely worth thinking about as you navigate this strategic world out there.